So Procurement Redefined the SAP advantage. So SAP path to operational efficiency, financial transparency, and service accountability. So, what you learn, how SAP simplifies direct materials procurement and MRP, then managing purchase orders with down payments and down in reminders, then standardizing service procurement with model specifications and structured steps. So just general thing we'll be looking at throughout this presentation, direct procurement. So if you're wondering what direct procurement is the art of acquiring raw materials and goods for production. Okay, so that's what direct material procurement means. Then you can create purchase requisition for stock material automatically using MRP, which is material requirements plan. We're going to see how it works in SAP. And down payment, how do we treat down payment in SAP application? So down payment is the initial paid amount before the actual handing over of goods. So how do we treat it in SAP? Then the service purchasing, what is service purchasing or procurement of services, and recording solution capabilities enables an efficient and cost-effective streamlined process for procuring services. So how are we going to treat this scenario in SAP? How do we treat this scenario in SAP? So procurement of direct materials. Direct material is the art of acquiring raw materials and goods for production. So these purchases are generally made in large quantities. Okay, so this purchasing process uses purchase requisition that are generated either using the MRP, which is material requirement planning process, or manually by a requester. So if you're asking what is purchase requisition, I'm going to treat that. Just follow me closely. So a purchaser validates the accuracy of purchase requisition and converts the purchase requisition into a purchase order. So the conversion from a purchase requisition to a purchase order can be done, number one, either automatically and is applicable for large volumes, or alternatively, the purchase orders can be generated manually. So you have the manual and the automatic. Purchase order can be subject to approvals based on predefined approval workflows before being issued to suppliers. We're going to check that scenario out as regards procurement of direct materials. Then goods are shipped from the suppliers, and once they arrive, you have the scenario of what we call good receipt. It's posted with reference to the purchase order. Upon receiving the invoice from the supplier invoice is created with reference to a purchase order, which then initiates the payment processing. So these are just the process we have, variables around direct materials, procurement of direct materials. So it's even possible to monitor the progress throughout the entire procurement process and can initiate reactive actions if needed. So you see my diagram, you see the process flow. You have your manage or purchase acquisition, which you convert into your managed purchase order. Then, but yeah, without you can even create your purchase order without actually purchase acquisition. So the system is that flexible. Then you have your managed goods receipt, then your managed stock, then manage invoices. We're going to check each of these scenarios as we go on this presentation. So procurement of direct material solution process steps. So number one step, or it's not necessary, as I mentioned earlier, you can decide to start with purchase acquisition. So what's the idea of purchase acquisition is for casual users, all right, the users that are not regular in the company, but they want to place request or requirement for a product is like an internal document. So purchase requisition is an internal document that defines the requirements of a material or service. Okay, so people from HR, people from maintenance team, people in accounting that are not professionals. So SAP is enabling them by giving them the platform like Ariba guided buying, so that they won't be scared of making or using procurements terms or services. So what it means is you raise requirements within the house, and it hits the procurement department, which the procurement department converts this request or requirement into purchase order. So the procurement of direct material solutions process can start with a purchase requisition, which can be created manually or automatically. All right. So as I said earlier on, is an internal document, right, that you can create within the organization, right? So as you can see on my screen, I'll just explain a bit, and you can have automatic sourcing determination so that the system searches for possible source of suppliers such as purchasing info record or a contract. Here you can see the document type, purchase requisition, as you can see. So this, just put it on your in your notes that is just an internal document. All right. So after you've created your purchase requisition, you can convert these purchase requisitions to purchase order manually. All right. So this is how your purchase requisition looks like, which is an internal document. Once you click on it, you can create it. You can create purchase order with it, as you can see on the screen, right? Then you can either create it manually or automatic conversion of purchase requisition to purchase order. You can convert purchase requisitions to purchase order using the schedule purchasing jobs. Okay, so you can schedule some of these jobs, okay, by you have your header specification selections like purchasing group, right? You can, so once these requirements are met in the system, it automatically converts it to purchase order. So you can set your parameters like the purchasing group, the purchasing organization. You can have a fixed vendor. So if this particular vendor is mentioned, a purchase requisition should automatically be converted, purchase requisition, yeah, into purchase order, PO. You can put the contracts if need be, then your plans, right? So the parameters are endless, but it covers all scenarios in a business setting. So once you do that, you can schedule. So you have, maybe you have in a day, you have a number of requisitions that you can't keep up with. You can just create the scheduling and it will convert them automatically. Then we have after, so we started with purchase requisition where you convert it to purchase order either manually or automatically, right, by scheduling. Also, you can start the process from create purchase order for purchase order, which is PO. So the process can also start with the creation of purchase order for stock materials directly. But the whole essence of the purchase requisition is just to create control. Like, so for the purchase requisition, there are possibility of creating budgets, all right, limits, policies, compliances, where maybe people from the HR department can't create a purchase requisition that is above certain budget limits, right? But if need be, they can, or if they can create that particular purchase requisition, it will go through an approval process. So, but the whole essence of SAP creating purchase requisition, where you have to create control, compliance, right, and policies so that it won't go outside your company policies. That's why we create purchase requisition, right? And sometimes indirectly it reduces the workload on the procurement department, okay, where they have to focus on key tasks, right, than just things that are unplanned for. But with this, that means, okay, for instance, you're an HR team member and you want to request for laptop, right? So this particular laptop have to go through, if there's an approval process, have to go through your team lead, right? Or your team lead to approve this particular purchase requisition. So once it hits the procurement department, they know this is within the company's policy, the compliance level, right? And what have you. So, but the whole essence of purchase requisition is to create control. But you can start this process in SAP either from requisitioning, purchase requisition, or purchase order, right? So if an approval workflow is defined, then the purchase order is subject to approval. Please check I have a webinar on workflow, cross topics in SAP, where I spoke about workflow, situation handling in SAP. You can refer to that. But today we're just focused on um, purchase order for direct materials. So you can put this control approval process. But if there's no approval process, right, a workflow on it, it will move automatically. So a purchase order is a request for instruction from a purchasing organization to a supplier or a plant, right, to deliver a quantity of material or to perform services at a certain point in time. So with this, you can differentiate purchase requisition and purchase order. So purchase requisition is an internal document to your procurement team, right? Then if you convert this purchase requisition to purchase order, now you are sending it to a supplier or a plant to deliver a quantity of material or perform services at a certain point in time. I hope you get the differences between purchase requisition and purchase order. This you can get in SAP S/4HANA Cloud. So this is how the interface looks like. The manage purchase order app. So you can see you can create. You have your standard PO, right? And you have other informations that will go deep into later. But I'm just giving you what you can find in SAP S/4HANA Cloud. Then from there, you have the next step is to post goods receipt for purchasing document. Once the ordered goods arrive, and if the good receipt was enabled in purchase order, you can post the goods receipt for your purchase order, right? So as a warehouse clerk or an inventory manager, so you can use the app called the Post Goods Receipt for Purchasing Document app. You can post the receipts of goods with reference to purchase order in which the goods ordered are for direct consumption. So since the goods are destined for consumption, only the consumption statistics are updated in the product and material master record. So if you see here, right, you see when you are receiving the goods, right, you either put it at unrestricted use, unrestricted use, you have quality inspection, you have blocked, then you have goods received block stock. So you might be wondering what's the difference between block and goods received block stock. So once you do your book goods received block stock, yeah, you are receiving the goods, but it's not impacting your valuations. Okay. So when you remove it, that's when it impacts the valuations. But that's for another day. But I just want to show you how the interface looks like when you are receiving goods. Okay, so this is the material, the distribution. You can distribute them to different plants if need be, right? Then you have your storage location and what have you. Then you move to your manage stock. So as an inventory manager, you want to manage the stock for materials. Using the manage stock app, you can use the app to update the stock for a material, right? For instance, in case of damaged materials that need to be scrapped, as they should not appear any longer in the stock overview, you can navigate and open the stock material app and analyze stock overview for the materials. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so you have your storage 101A, right? And so you can manage them. You can move it either from unrestricted use to block, either from block to stock in quality inspection. You can do all of that. You can see from the screen here, the manage stock here, the pop square here. You have stock change scrapping. Look at the location is under unrestricted use, right? Special stock type, standard stock, right? So you can have all of these and so the SAP provides these features to help you manage your stock, right? You can see there are some graphical representation of your statistics or your data in the system. All right, so we have the next step is create supplier invoice. Okay, as an accounts payable accountant for procurement, using this app, you can create supplier invoices for your purchase orders based on the received document from your supplier. So you can also create credit memo, subsequent credits, and subsequent debits, right? So with this, you can create, okay, credit memo for returns and what have you. But this is how you have your supplier invoice when you are creating it. So the transaction, the company code, the invoice date, the posting date, right? The invoicing party, right? And what have you. But I'm just, so as I said earlier, we're just focused on the process, not going into detail. Oh, so when you talk about down payments, how does the scenario play in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, right? So you might be wondering. So SAP has an advanced app that covers this scenario. Okay, so down payments, as I defined earlier, is the initial paid amount before the actual handing over of goods, right? It is typically a percentage of the total purchase price and is often used with the procurement of expensive items or services. So if you are wondering, you've been thinking you want an application that will cover this scenario called down payment, then you found one, which is SAP, right? So here you can create purchase order with down payment. I'm going to show you the dashboard, how it looks like. You create your down payment request, you create down payment, then you manage your goods receipt, then you manage your invoice. So down payment can be recorded in purchase order and during invoice verification. The down payment clearing clears the down payment that have not been cleared in F1, right? Invoice. The system posts a down payment clearing document along with an invoice document. I'm going to show you how it works in SAP. So this is you are creating purchase orders with down payment. So in S/4HANA Cloud, you can create purchase order manually with down payment using Create Purchase Order Advanced app. All right. So let me go all over it. Right. So the procurement redefined, the SAP design advantage. So you have the SAP path to operational efficiency, financial transparency, and service accountability. So what you'll be learning today, how SAP simplifies direct materials, procurement, and MRP, managing purchase orders with down payments, downing reminders, standardizing service procurement with model specification and structure steps. Then just a few definition of terms like what is direct procurement, how does the scenario of MRP works in SAP, how do we treat down payment in SAP, then the service purchasing or procurement of services in SAP. As you can see, is the act of acquiring raw materials and goods for production. Then you can create purchase requisitions for stock materials automatically using material requirements planning. Then down payment is the initial paid amount before the actual handing over of goods. Then service purchasing and recording solution capability enables an efficient and cost-effective streamlined process for procurement services. So this is just the variables, right? The intervening variables that actually define or describe the procurements of direct materials. Number one attribute is these purchases are generally made in large quantities because you may want to use it for production, as we earlier mentioned. These purchasing processes uses purchase requisitions that are generated either using the MRP, which is Material Requirements Planning, processes or manually by a requester. So manual or you use a MRP. Then you can convert your purchase requisitions into purchase order and either manually or automatically. Then you can put control around it, which is either approval, right? Approval levels. Then you receiving this particular stock, you can, which is in your goods receipt app, which is posted with reference to purchase order, and it's possible to monitor the progress throughout the entire procurement process and can initiate reactive actions if needed. So if you see on my screen, you have the manage purchase requisitions, then you have your managed purchase order, then you have your managed goods receipt, then your managed stock, and your managed invoices. I'm going to take them one after the other. This webinar goes on. So we have the create purchase requisition. So if you're wondering what is purchase requisition and purchase order, purchase requisition is an internal document that defines the requirement of a material or service. So this document authorizes the purchase department or purchasing department to procure the material in quantity specified for the specified date. So it's regarded as an internal document where maybe if you have departments, the HR, the maintenance group, the finance group, the sales group want to place an order, they don't have to place purchase order. They just create what we call purchase requisition, right? Right. Sometimes you can, this is just mainly for control in the system, as I mentioned earlier. So you create policies, you create control so that it's not everything that is created on the system that hits the external stakeholders like the suppliers, right? So you can use automatic source discrimination so that the system searches for possible sources of supply, such as purchasing info, record, or a contract. So as you can see on this is how the purchase requisition looks like, right? You can come here, you can create purchase requisition, but all this is good, right? So that people won't have contact your supplier directly. You have control where people in your department control your requisition, and when it gets to the purchase procurement department, they have control. That's when they send it to the supplier. So purchase requisition is one of the unique feature that SAP has that provides the flexibility, the control, the policy, right? You have your damage control before it leaves the organization. So it's just an internal document. Then if you want to know next, this is how it looks, right? You can create it manually, okay, by you can convert purchase requisitions to purchase orders manually. Then you can do automatic conversion of purchase requisitions to purchase order where you schedule them. So here you can create parameters where parameters using the purchasing group, using the purchase organization, a particular vendor, right? A particular plant or storage locations. But you can just create parameters where if each of these scenarios is triggered, it converts it purchase requisition, which is PR, into purchase order PO, right? So this is flexible and has a great user experience when you use it. Then procurement of direct material solution process steps. So it's two scenario, right? The system is so forgiving or very usable. The usability of the system is great and very flexible, where you can start your process either from purchase requisition, or you can decide which from purchase requisition and convert it to purchase order, or you have a scenario where you can just start from purchase order. So if you are wondering, okay, why do you have purchase order? Why do you have purchase requisition? As I said earlier on, purchase requisition is just to create control, balance, right? Compliance, create policies around procurement, but it's even an internal document. So whatever damage is done can be controlled. But a purchase order is a request or instruction from a purchasing organization to a supplier or a plant, right, to deliver a quantity of material or to perform services at a certain point in time, right? So sometimes you can even put approval or workflow, right, to define the purchase order, and you get just to put control. So I had spoken earlier around workflows, right? We call them cross topics in SAP. Very intelligent. We have situation handling, you have workflow, team and responsibility. I treated it in one of my webinars. You can just check the video. But here I'm just focused on procurement of direct material, right? And the first or the second step is creating purchase order. All right. The next is receiving the goods. How do you receive the goods? This is how the application, once the ordered goods arrive, and if the good received was enabled in purchase order, you can post the goods received for your purchase order, right? As a warehouse clerk or an inventory manager using the post goods received for purchasing document app, you can post the goods, you can post the receipt of goods with reference to a PO, obviously, in which the goods are for direct consumption. So since the goods are destined for consumption, only the consumption statistics are updated in the products and material master record. So as you can see, I'll just explain a few attributes in this goods post goods receipt app. So you have single sleep. So here you can do your distribution to different plants, okay, or storage locations. Here, stock type, right? Stock type, you can either put it as unrestricted use, quality inspection, block, or goods receipt block stock. This is a fantastic feature that is SAP added recently, right? Where the goods receipt block stock, you receive them, but it doesn't impact your valuation, right? It's blocked. So if you're asking what is blocked, and what is goods received block stock. So whatever you don't want to have impact in your valuation, stock valuation, you just put it that goods is received, but you don't want to see the impact in your stock. This is an intelligent system, as you can see. So moving on, we have manage stock, right? Here you can manage your stock. You can either how to move your stock. So we have here from unrestricted use stock to you can move it to block stock, or you can move it to stock in quality inspection, right? So you can do all of this. And maybe you have returns, right? And you want to move from here to here. And it provides analytics, right? It gives you um, graphical representation of your data, right? And what have you. So that's how it looks to manage the stock. Then we still have in this process of direct procurement of direct material solution process steps, we have what we call create supplier invoice. Here as an accounts payable accountants for procurement. Using this app, you can create supplier invoices for your purchase order based on the received document from your supplier. You can also create credit memos, subsequent credits, and subsequent debits, right, with this application or in SAP S/4HANA Cloud. If you're wondering how you treat the scenario around purchase order with down payments, which I've mentioned earlier, right? So down payment is the initial paid amount before the actual handling of goods. So it is typically a percentage of the total purchase price and is often used with the procurement of expensive item or services. So here's the workflow. You create your purchase order with down payment. You create down payment request. You create down payment, uh, right? Then you manage goods received, then you manage your invoice. So down payment can be recorded in purchase order and during invoice validation. But I'm going to show you how this scenario works in SAP S/4HANA and how you can treat it in S4. Moving on. So how do you purchase order with down payment? So we're going to see how you can create purchase order with down payment. So this is how it looks. If you look closely, the yellow yellow marked border here, you see down payment category. So you have the mandatory down payments. We have other scenarios too. Then you have what is the percentage, the down payment percentage. Is it 50%? Is it 60, 10%? You can create that scenario here. The due date for this expected down payment, you can actually include it, right? Then if you're not using percentage, you can say, okay, down payment amount you specify here, right? If you look closely in the second yellow border down here, you see DP, which is down payment category, mandatory down payment amount. So the 10% of that particular amount is 3,600 euros. Then the due date for this down payment is here. So once you create this scenario here, right, for you to be able to go to the next step, right, this down payment have to be confirmed, cleared for you to move to the next step, right? So in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, you can create purchase orders manually with down payment using the Create Purchase Order Advanced app. You can define the down payment parameters such as down payment category, down payment amount or percentage, which I've mentioned. Then moving on, we have purchase order with down payment, create down payment request. Once it's created, as you can see the status of purchase order item with down payment using the monitoring. Like, so if you see here, completely posted, not posted, right? All of this, you can create your down payment request, right? So yeah, from here. Then after creating we have follow-up documents, right? So after posting the down payment request and making sure that the down payment has not been blocked in any payment run and payment proposal, you can create the payment for the down payment request using the post outgoing payment app by entering the values such as bank and account details. Once the goods arrive, the warehouse clerk checks the goods and posts the goods received using the post goods received for purchasing document app. The down payment clearing is performed during the invoice verification. When posting the invoice, down payment clearing document is posted as well, right? So this is a fantastic scenario, just how it works in the real world. The SAP has been able to capture the scenario in their system, and it's fantastic. So downing and other acknowledgement reminders. So the whole purpose, I'm going to rush through this. You can generate outputs of type, downing reminders, and reminders for purchase order acknowledgement. With this, right, as a purchaser, you can create and send delivery reminders for goods or services to your business partners to remind them of overdue deliveries date. You can print or email, right, downing or urging letters with unfulfilled quantities and overdue dates, right? So after setting up the confirmation control for the reminder, you can send reminder to suppliers to fulfill goods delivery or render services, use reminder via print and email, run the program in the background via schedule dawning, reminder output for the purchase order application, right? So this is another great feature you're going to see in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, right? So you can create and send reminders to business partner for overdue confirmations. You can print or email down in letters without overdue confirmation. So you see this is how it looks. So the following screen shows the setting for confirmation control for the reminder, right? Yeah. So after setting up the confirmation control for the order acknowledgements, you can send reminders to suppliers to confirm goods delivery, use reminder via print and email channels, run program in background, then schedule acknowledgement output for purchase applications, right? So this has to do with just notifications, confirmations, and acknowledgements. So moving on, we have running material requirement planning. You can create purchase requisition for stock material automatically using material requirement planning. So we have make to stock, right, materials, and make to order. So we have these two scenarios, plan independent scenarios in SAP S/4HANA in more concrete terms, right, using MRP, you can automate procurement planning. The main function of MRP is to guarantee material availability and to avoid delay in order fulfillment. Therefore, it is used to procure or produce the required. So the procure is make to order, and to produce is make to stock if need be. So the required quantities on time. So the emphasis around MRP is having availability, right, on time, both for internal purposes and for sales and distribution. So this process involves the monitoring of stocks, and in particular, the automatic creation of procurement proposals for purchasing and production. So the planning run checks the availability of each material, and in case of shortages, right, that's where MRP comes in. It creates purchase requisitions or delivery schedules if a scheduling agreement exists. Remaining shortages are displayed in the MRP app, where the material planner can analyze the situation. So procurement lead time can be longer than the time available to fulfill the demand. But the MRP schedule runs, right? The system creates purchase requisitions or scheduling line that trigger external procurement. We're going to see how it works. So running material requirement planning, which is MRP. During the MRP run, the system compares all receipts with all requirements to find out whether material requirements exist that are not yet covered. If uncovered requirement exists, the system creates new procurement proposals or updates existing procurement proposals, thus guaranteeing material availability on time. So the MRP run in this app is performed for the selected material in the selected grant using the MRP run parameters. So you can define from the user actions menu, you can see the result immediately in stock and requirements list. So you can use the schedule MRP app to create and schedule a job for performing your MRP run. So to automate planning process, the MRP has to be carried out on a regular basis. So this is another great topic that SAP has done an extensive work to cover real life scenario, which is the procurement of services. So the service purchasing and record solution capability enables an efficient and cost-effective streamlined process for procuring services, right? So you have a highly automated process for services procurement, allow you to efficiently manage the entire of life cycle of service procurement, from sourcing and contracting to ordering, delivering, invoicing. The solution process enables you to monitor service fulfillment in real time and support monitoring purchase order items with an analytical list page. So the solution process supports standard item for planned lean service and limit item for unplanned lean service. So how does this work, right? So what is planned services? Planned services are services whose nature and scope are known, right, to you before you create the service purchase order. But when you have unplanned services, it means services that cannot be specified in detail because their precise nature and scope are not initially known, on services you do not wish to plan for various reasons. So let's assume you put your limits. That's what it means, right? When you say, okay, if you are going to procure this service, the limit shouldn't be more than 1,000 euros, right? So you are creating a limit, not that you have an idea of how much this service is worth, right? So that's when it comes. So you just give them a range, and they can't spend above the budget line. That's what it means. So for plan, you do have an idea of how much it costs, but for plan, you don't have an idea. But you have a range for it. So the fact that you don't have an idea of the planned services, you have a planned range for that particular services. SAP covers that scenario. So, but the process flow, you have the managed purchase requisitions, you have the managed purchase order, you have managed service entry sheets, and managed invoice. I'm just going to cover them very fast. Maybe in our next webinar, I'm going to describe the procurement of service in detail. So here, the procurement of service in details. The procurement starts with a purchase requisition, just as you have with direct materials, the same scenario, right? But just different principles, right? Then manually created or triggered from a service order, which is then converted to a purchase order. It can also start directly with a manually created purchase order with the required service. But I have something I want you to note, right? So if you can decide if a goods received is required, allowing you to record the performed service by creating a service entry sheet. So each service entry sheet reference one purchase order. So please note, you can decide if a goods received is required, allowing you to record the performed services by creating a service entry sheet, like an evidence that this service has actually been carried out, right, by the supplier. So the service entry sheet is the proof that this has been carried out, right? So the purchase order can consist of standard items for planned lean service or limit items, which you mentioned earlier. The service entry sheet can be subject to approval or it can be automatically approved. Once the service is performed and the service entry sheet is approved, the supplier invoice can be created upon receiving the invoice from the supplier. So I'll just run through what model product specification is in SAP S/4HANA Cloud. Model product specification is a structured set of related service and materials that can be used as a template for procurement process or documents such as purchase contracts. You can model product specification to group services and material frequently ordered together to complete a particular task. You can further categorize the service and material within a model product specification by grouping them into item terms, right? So you can create up to 5 levels in an item hierarchy. This doesn't affect the number of items you can add, right? So in the model product specifications, you can use item hierarchies to structure your items. An item hierarchy is a means of grouping items, services, or materials in purchasing documents. An item hierarchy can consist of one or multiple item sets with sub-items. This way, you can structure and sort your items, right? So it's possible to import model products specification using spreadsheet. Well, as you can see on my screen, right? So you have item 1, this is hierarchy number. In item 1, you have 1.1, right? Service material 1.2, hardware COGS 001, right? So you can create them in hierarchy and put sub-items under it, right? Okay, that's what it means by we mean by model product specification. So create purchase requisition item, as you can see from my screen, it's just self-explanatory. You can create items, set items with NPS, then items from external creditors. So you can do either material, service, or item sets. So once you select the item sets, right, it's going to give you this cascading, right, the hierarchy, which is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Then the item number 10, 20, 30. So if you click on this item number 10, you have 20, 30, 40, 50. So it's a way of you grouping or atomizing your service or material, right? So maybe you have an item, you have a service, and you want there are maybe parts, VMs you want to add so that they can perform that particular service. You can add it to it, right? Yeah, so that's what it means. So if you see here, field service engineer, right? Technician, custom parts, then custom part 2. So these are all the things you need to perform this procurement, uh, procurement of service. Moving on, service procurement, purchase requisition. Here, just as we have in direct materials, is applicable in services. Here you can create material, you can create service, or you can create an item set, which is hierarchical in nature, right? Then you have the service using service order. Business users can trigger the creation of purchase requisition for planned lean services directly out of the service order. Yeah, so you have the scenario covered in SAP. Then here you can manage purchase order for services. So you can convert your purchase requisitions, right, into purchase order. So instead of being triggered by a service order or a manual or a manually created purchase requisition, the process can also start directly with the creation of purchase order for the required service. So if it may also be subject to approval if required. So you can use flexible workflows to define approval processes according to your business requirements. All right, I've explained this earlier. So I really want you to get the concept of service entry sheets. So you can use service entry sheets to record the ordered service that have been performed. It's a proof that that particular service has been performed, right? You can create service entry sheets using the Manage Service Entry Sheet Lane Service app. Using the app, you can change the service entry sheet and send them for approval. So you can search for service entry sheets and you can sort, filter, and group the list of the service entry, for example, by supplier or by reference purchase order. So as you can see here, these are the list of service entry sheets. As I said earlier on, is you can use service entry sheets to record the other services that have been performed. Is a proof that this has been performed, then maybe the next for invoicing, right? So service entry sheet, you have to reference it to a purchase order, right? Yeah. So you can create or change the service entry sheet with reference to a purchase order. Then we have unplanned services reference to purchasing contracts, right? So you can record contract limits if there's a contract in the purchase order and select a contract item in the service entry sheet. The price per unit for each limit is determined by contract for limits. Okay, I've explained this earlier. For consumables, consumable material in service entry sheet. You can record consumable materials in service entry sheet. Consumable materials are items or product type groups that were used during the execution of a service and that were planned together with the service in reference purchase order. All right. Then importing, so there's a possibility of you importing service entry sheet from Microsoft Excel sheet. So you can create multiple service entry sheet by importing service entry sheets from Microsoft Excel, right? So, but only authorized users can import service entry sheets from Microsoft. So SAP they have control, they have policies, right? As I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so you can even create an approval around service entry sheet, right? Then supply invoice. Once the service is performed and you receive the corresponding invoice from your supplier, you can create the supply invoice for the service purchase order, right? Yeah, so you know here you are referencing the service entry sheet that the proof that the service has been performed. All right, thank you for joining in today, and I hope to see you for next month's edition. And I hope I've taking you through this scenario in SAP, how SAP simplifies direct materials, procurement, and material requirement planning, how SAP manages purchase order with down payments and down reminders for confirmations and acknowledgements, then how standardizing service procurement with model specifications and structure steps. Here in the model specification, we checked or we looked at item hierarchy, where hierarchical in nature, item sets, where you have the service material and item sets. Where under the item, you can have sub items. Then the structural steps, we talked about service entry sheet, which is quite unique from the, the purchase of direct materials, but have the same ideology. All right, thank you so much. Until next time, stay blessed. Thank you, Victor.